I kissed a prince and tasted no restraint. The centuries ache undone in one held breath. 600 years he waited bound in paint. One stolen night to burn a lifetime's touch.
Every evening, when the dust motes turned to floating embers in the dying light, Ren felt the painting watching her. It hung at the end of the east wing in a corridor the other librarians avoided without quite knowing why. 3 studies of the same Elven prince rendered in oil, so old it had gone the color of steeped tea, white hair like spilled moonlight, a jaw cut for confessions, and eyes the pale gold of candle flame seen through wine. In each pose he looked away from her, proud and unreachable, draped in ceremonial white and chains of dull gold, as though the artist had tried 3 times to capture him and failed 3 times to make him look at the viewer. Except lately he started to. She told herself it was exhaustion, weeks of cataloging the forgotten archive alone, weeks of candlelight and silence, weeks of nobody to talk to but the dead in their leather bindings. But tonight, as she climbed the rolling ladder to dust the high shelf across from him, she caught his eyes already on her, not painted on and static, but waiting, watching the curve of her throat as she reached, watching her mouth. Her pulse did something embarrassing. "You're not allowed to do that," she said aloud, because the silence of the archive made her bold in ways daylight never did. Paintings don't watch. The gold in his eyes deepened like a coal someone had breathed on. She should have left then. She knows that now, looking back on it, that the smart thing, the safe thing, would have been to climb down the ladder, lock the east wing, and never again walk past dusk. Instead, she set down her cloth and looked at it, and crossed the worn carpet until she stood close enough to see the brushstrokes, close enough that her own breath fogged faintly against the 600 years of varnish. "Say something," she whispered. "If you're going to haunt me, at least have the decency to talk." The painting rippled, not cracked, not peeled, rippled, the way still water does when something beneath it finally moves. Gold paint ran like poured honey, white silk billowed though there was no wind in the room. And then the hand, real and warm, cool, and impossibly there, closed gently around her wrist where it rested on the frame. Ren did not scream. She would be proud of that detail for the rest of her life. She only stood frozen, heart slamming, as the prince of the painting stepped down out of his own portrait and into the candlelight of her ordinary, dust-choked world. He looked amazing, and it seemed unfair somehow, on top of everything else. 612 years, he said, in a voice like a struck bell, low and resonant, and faintly rusted from disuse. And you were the first to speak to me, as though I might answer. 600? Ren's voice cracked. You are real. I was real before I was this. He looked down at his own hands, as though they belonged to a stranger, flexing the fingers, testing the weight of being flesh again. Up close his eyes were not gold, but amber, shot through with something molten, something that did not belong to any mortal anatomy book. A curse, librarian, a jealous court mage and a princess I would not marry. They painted my likeness and bound my soul inside it, so that I might be admired forever and touched never again. His gaze dropped very deliberately to where his fingers still circled her wrist, to her pulse, which he could surely feel hammering beneath the thumb. Until tonight, he said. His name was Filer, and he moved through the archive like something that had forgotten how floors worked, too light, too careful, as though 6 centuries of stillness made him distrustful of his own weight. Ren lit more candles than she needed to. She told herself it was for the light. It was not for the light. She wanted to see him, every line of him, the strange ethereal pallor of his skin gone gold in the flame. The chains at his hips that chimed softly when he turned. How long before you go back, she said. Dawn, he said it without flinching, the way a man speaks of a death he has long since stopped resenting. The spell loosens once a century for a single turning of dusk to dawn, a cruelty disguised as mercy. Long enough to remember what I have lost, never long enough to keep it. But that's horrible. It was. His eyes found hers, and something in them shifted, warmed, focused entirely on her face, in a way that made the air in the room feel thinner. Until a mortal woman climbed the ladder to dust a forgotten portrait, and then spoke to me as though I wore a man instead of a wall ornament. Ren felt heat climb her throat, her cheeks settle low and unfamiliar in her belly. I just thought you were lonely. I am lonely. He took one step closer. The candlelight pooled in the hollow of his throat, the ridges of his collarbone, and Ren had the dim, dazed thought that she had never in her life wanted so badly to put her mouth somewhere. I have never been lonely so much for 600 years, Ren of the Archive. Tell me your full name. I find I would like to know what to whisper when the night is done. Ren Ashby. But how do you know my name? I have watched you read by candlelight for 3 months. A ghost of a smile, devastating in its restraint. I know the shape of your laugh from across a silent room. I know you hum when you think no one can hear. I have had 600 years to learn patience, Lurian, and 3 months to learn you. Lurian. She didn't know the word. She didn't need to. The way he said it, low and reverent, made her knees feel unreliable. They did not kiss. Not yet. That was the cruelty of it. the slow, exquisite torment that he seemed determined to spend the whole of his one stolen night learning her by inches before he took anything at all. He asked about her work, her books, the small, dull mortal life she had built among the stacks, and he listened the way no one had ever listened to her, golden eyes never once leaving her face. And when she faltered over a word, he leaned in, as though her voice were the only sound he intended to remember. "Dance with me," he said, somewhere past midnight, when the candles had burnt low and gilded everything between them honey gold. There is always music if you listen. He held out his hand, palm up, an offering and a question. "Hum something, my love. I will follow wherever you lead me." She did, something half remembered, something her grandmother used to sing, and he drew her in by the waist with a hand that fit there as though it had been carved for the purpose. They turned slowly between the shelves, her cheek a breath away from his chest, his lips a breath from her hair, and Wren understood with sudden dazing clarity that he had never in her life been held like this. She was something rare, being handled by someone who knew exactly how rare she was. "I am cold. Do you think so?" "I know you are not." His voice has dropped, gone rough at the edges. "I can feel your heart from here, librarian, racing like something hunted." His thumb traced idly at the small of her back, and heat unfurled low in her stomach, sharp and unfamiliar, and entirely unwelcomed intensity. "Does it frighten you, the wanting?" "Yes," she admitted, because the dark and the dying candlelight made honesty easy. "I don't usually." "Neither do I." He pulled back just far enough to look at her, and the molten want in his eyes nearly buckled her knees outright. "I've been admired for 6 centuries, Wren, painted, gilded, hung on walls and worshipped from a distance. No one has ever simply wanted me." His thumb traced her jaw, tilted her face up to his. "Until you looked at me like I was a man and not a masterpiece." "You are a masterpiece," she whispered. "You are only unfairly handsome for someone who has been dead for 600 years. Not dead." The words felt against her lips, only waiting. There is a difference. And I think when no one precisely knows who one is waiting for. He kissed her then, finally, achingly slow. A question first, barely there, giving her every chance to step back. She didn't. She rose onto her toes instead and answered it. The question dissolved into something deeper and hungrier, his hand sliding into her hairs, as hers fisted in pale silk at his chest. He tasted like cold stone warmed by sun, like something ancient and patient finally rewarded. Wren made a small sound against his mouth, and she would have been embarrassed by that. And he answered it with a groan low in his throat that she felt more than heard, that she felt everywhere, pooling low and hot and insistent. Filer, she gasped, when he finally let her breathe, his lips finding the jaw, her throat the wild pulse. Say it again. His voice has gone wrecked and reverent. Say my name, librarian. I've not heard my own name in 600 years. Let it be the last thing I hear in yours. Filer. Her hands were shaking, so she noted dazedly, "Don't stop, my love." I don't intend to, but he did pause, forehead pressed to hers, both of them breathing hard in the candle gold dark, his thumb tracing her lower lip like a reverence that undid her more thoroughly than the kiss did. Not until the bells ring dawn, I will not waste a single moment of you on sleep. They did not go further than that. Kisses that left her lightheaded, hands that mapped warmth without taking. A slow, devastating seduction built entirely of restraint and want, held just barely in check. He told her, between kisses, of the world before the curse, courts of starlight, oceans that sang, his mother's love. She told him, between kisses, of every small thing she had never told anyone, and he listened to her ordinary life as though it were the rarest book in the archive. The bells rang at the first grey edge of dawn, soft and final and utterly without mercy. Filer, it is time. Don't. Please, there has to be some way. There is not, librarian. He slowly cupped her face in both hands, golden eyes already dimming at the edges like a candle guttering. But hear me, the curse said, once a century. It did not say I would wait for it alone. His thumb swept the tears she hadn't noticed falling. You have done what no court mage, no princess, no century of silence could do. You have made me want to wake up again. The spell binds tighter now to you. I will come to you each task that the moon turns full. For so long as you are willing to have a painted prince steal your nights. That's not enough, she whispered, even as hope cracked something open in her chest. No, he kissed her once more, slow and aching and final, pouring 600 years of waiting into the press of his mouth against hers. It is a beginning. Wait for me, Rain Ashby. I have learned patience. Now I should learn how to be loved. The light took him gently, not violently, not cruelly, but like a tide reclaiming what the shore had only ever borrowed. Gold paint climbed into the painting like dawn climbing a hill. White silk brushed, and then he was a portrait again. 3 studies of the same proud prince, except now his eyes in every pose were turned toward her, gold and warm. Wren pressed her fingers to her own lips, still kiss swollen, still burning, and stayed until full sunrise watching a painting that watched her back. The moon would turn full again in 28 days. She intended to be there for every single one. Good night.
He was a portrait once, and I his thief. I stole him breathing from a frame of gold. 600 years compressed to one belief, that wanting given voice need not grow old. His hands remembered skin before they touched, relearned my pulse like scripture long unread. I trembled where his thumb traced, lingered, hushed, and felt my whole blood turn to candle red. Say my name, he breathed against my jaw. Let it be the last thing dusk has heard. I gave it shaking like a sacred flaw, and watched him drink it deeper than a word. We kissed until the bell lights start to climb, until his mouth was all I knew of prayer. One stolen night, 1 century of time, and still his gold eyes fall